This episode of The Startup Life is tucked in nice and tight by Philip Stein and the Philip Stein Sleep Bracelet. Startup Nation, getting quality sleep is super important, especially for those of us as entrepreneurs. I know for me, if I don't get enough quality sleep, not only do I not perform well while working in my business or exercising, but also it really affects my mental health and that doubt starts to creep in. And that's the last thing we want as entrepreneurs. Also, with everything going on, good quality sleep is important to repair the body and support a good immune system. And that is why, Startup Nation, I wear the Philip Stein Sleep Bracelet. The Philip Stein Sleep Bracelet uses natural frequency technology to reinforce our biomagnetic field to improve deep sleep, length of sleep, and overall sleep quality. This helps produce a healthier heart, regulate weight control, and helps strengthen the immune system, which helps destroy bacteria and viruses. Right now, when you go to philipstein.com, use code SLEEPEZ and you will get 10% off the entire store. That's promo code SLEEP, capital E, capital Z. So if you are ready to be more productive in leading your business, go with the Philip Stein Sleep Bracelet, proven to be natural and safe to give you a better, deeper sleep.
It's time to be about that life, the startup life. Here's your host, Dominic Lawson.
All right, Startup Nation, so I hope you're ready to receive some value today. My name is Dominic Lawson, and this is The Startup Life, the show for entrepreneurs and career-minded professionals. You know, Startup Nation, fear and uncertainty is something we all face, especially when you're talking about building a business. And when you throw in a world pandemic, I think we can all say that we didn't see that one coming. But I think today's guest helps us out with the mindset of getting through this unprecedented time of uncertainty. He is the face of the Flying Wallendas, the famous circus family known for performing crazy feats without safety nets. He is also known for his daring televised tightrope walks over Times Square, Niagara Falls, the Grand Canyon, and most recently in early 2020 when he walked over the active Messiah volcano. He is the holder of 11 Guinness World Book of Records. And he's also the author of Facing Fear, Step Out in Faith and Rise Above What's Holding You Back. He is, and it is an absolute honor to talk to him, Nic Wallenda. Nic, how's it going, good sir?
I am doing great, Dominic. Thanks for having me on the show.
No worries. So you know what? We can definitely use your help today, Nic. Are you ready to pour some knowledge in the Startup Nation today?
I am, man. I am so excited about this new book that's coming out.
I bet. So first things first, if you would, sir, just kind of talk to us a little bit about growing up in the Wallenda family, some of those life lessons you kind of learned in there. I know they're in the book, but kind of share some of those life lessons you learned early as a kid in the Wallenda family.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'll give you a little bit of history.
Sure.
My family started performing back in the 1780s.
Wow.
Over in Bohemia, eventually making their way to Germany. In 1928, they were brought over to the United States to perform on Ringling Brothers, Barnum and Bailey Circus. And they performed their headline there for about 20 years before my great-grandfather started his own show, where he then created the 7-person pyramid on the wire, which he created in 1942, performed that until 1962. And in 1962, they were performing that in Detroit, Michigan. There was a collapse of that pyramid. 2 uncles killed, 1 paralyzed. Right. And great-grandfather snuck out of the hospital and got back on the wire the next day, living by the word, the show must go on.
Gotcha.
Which is really kind of leads to my life. My family, through triumph and tragedy, a great-grandfather lost his life in 1978, walking between 2 buildings in San Juan, Puerto Rico at 73 years old. And, growing up in that legacy, I was born about 9 months after he lost his life. And kind of had a lot of different mindsets that were sort of inherited, if you will, from family history of never giving up no matter what. And I've really carried that out throughout my career and throughout my life, which I believe is why when you think of Wallenda this day and age, you definitely think of Nic Wallenda, because I just have that mindset of not giving up, not backing down, pursuing my dreams no matter what challenges I face. I talk a lot about it in my first book, Balance, where I went through a challenging time throughout my teen years, because my mom had written a book called The Last of the Wallendas, because the circus world as a whole was sort of going away.
Right.
And she didn't believe there was a future in it. So my parents really pushed me away from the industry, which was what I loved doing. My family loves walking wires. I know it sounds crazy, but my great-grandfather said it best when he said, life is on the wire and everything else is just waiting. And for my family, that was very, very true. This is our life. So here I am, a teenager, trying to make a decision of what I'm going to do for my career. And my parents were saying, hey, you know what, even though it's your passion, even though that's what you love, it's probably not what's best for you. It's not what's best to support a family, to be in an industry that's going away. Right. My great-grandfather said it best. He wrote a book in the 70s. He said, as a wire walker, one day you eat the chicken, the next day you eat the feathers. And it was very, very true. So growing up under that mindset, I really struggled with what I was going to do with my life. Because here I thought I knew my calling. I thought I knew what I was meant to be, what I was created to be, which was a daredevil and a wire walker and carrying on a legacy. But my parents were like, I don't know that it's right for you. And I talk a lot about in that book of how I would take 3 steps forward. Long story short, I was accepted at a university. I was going to move on and become a pediatrician was the ultimate goal because there wasn't a future in what we did. And we were invited to go back to Detroit, Michigan when I was 18 years old, 2 months away from going to college, to recreate that pyramid for the first time since it fell back in 1962. Mm-hmm. We went there and I realized that our business wasn't dying, but it was changing. And what I mean by that was there was meetings from around the world there that were there to see us. They were doing documentaries from everywhere from Germany to China to Japan. A&E was there for the U.S., Larry King Live, Entertainment Tonight, you name it. They were all there to cover this show. Right. So I thought, the industry isn't dying, it's changing. And I kind of set off really kind of upsetting my parents in a sense, although, of course, they want to see me happy, but also want to see me pay my bills and be able to support my family.
For sure.
But hey, you know what? I'm going to carry on this legacy. And I talk a lot about how there were many times where I would take 3 steps forward and 4 steps backwards. I went on to break a world record. I thought if we do big things, it'll create headlines, it'll build our brand, and it'll support our dreams and be able to actually support us financially. So we broke a world record, made headlines around the world, and I came back to Florida and went back and worked in a restaurant for 3 years. All the while trying to pursue this dream at the same time. But I think there's so many people that are on the cusp of success of their dream, and because of one failure, they give up on that dream. And see, what I've learned through my career and through my life is that you cannot be successful unless you have failure. It takes failure to become successful. It's just part of the journey. You have to go through the valley to get to the peak of the mountain. It is part of it. So I learned that early on in life that, hey, we're going to have big setbacks, but continue to push through and don't give up no matter what. Again, it wasn't as though I just sat around waiting for the next check to come in. I worked and maintained an occupation just to be able to support my family in the meantime, but also continue to pursue those dreams. So growing up in that lifestyle, went on to have this dream of walking across Niagara Falls, and the process of that, which took changing 2 laws in 2 countries that were over 100 years old, just to get permission to do that walk. It was a monumental task to do that. But again, it was 3 steps forward and then 4 steps backwards. But I continue to live by that legacy of what my family had taught. Meanwhile, I was also taught that I can overcome any thoughts in my mind, that those thoughts of fear that creep in when I step up to the edge of the wire, that rather than accepting those thoughts, I can counter those thoughts. And what one would consider fear, my family actually considers respect, and we can talk about that a little bit more if you'd like.
For sure. And we definitely do want to talk about, but I want to ask you something a little bit, because talk about that transition a little bit more from the circus into what you do now, because I guess what I'm asking is, like, what were some of those steps that you took, to kind of monetize? Was it speaking engagement? Was it the feats? Like, kind of talk about that a little bit, if you don't mind.
Yeah. So I had the struggle of being raised up in a legacy that was, again, an industry that was going away. Right. So I had to take an industry that is several hundred years old and figure out, how can I change it? How can I adapt to the times? And I think there's a lot of businesses out there right now that are dealing with the same thing. Businesses can become irrelevant if they don't remain relevant, and they don't work hard to remain relevant. So I had to take, again, this age-old industry, this 300, 400-plus year-old industry, not just 200-year legacy, and continue to create and think outside of the box. So that's when I sat back and said, what can I do? How can I do what you see under a circus tent, which is really my family history, but bring it mainstream? And that's when I started pursuing permission to walk across the Grand Canyon, Niagara Falls, and had these ideas of doing these bigger walks. Now, again, the journey was tremendously hard, overwhelmingly challenging. But it was something that I believed in. I truly believed in. And I think there are so many people out there right now that have dreams and have goals that they truly believe in. But because of fear, because of the mind talking them out of it, they don't pursue those dreams. In my latest book, Facing Fear, I talk a lot about that. I think I really wrote this book prior to this pandemic. It was pretty much wrapped up. I wrote an extra chapter after this pandemic came out because I think it just hit so many more people with fear.
Right.
But I really wrote it to the person that is held back from their greatest achievements, from their calling, really, from their purpose because of fear. I think there are so many people in society that are scared to pursue their dreams of whatever it might be, whatever their occupation might be, if their dream is to climb Mount Everest. I think so many people's minds say, well, you're not going to be able to climb Mount Everest. There are very few people in the world that can. My mind says, why can't I be one of those very few people that does?
Right.
And I think we just have to learn to reprogram our brain. We all know that analogy of the devil on one shoulder and the angel on the other, and
right.
they're continually arguing. That's real in all of our minds. There is a battle going on in our minds, and it's up to us whether we allow the negative to overtake the positive, whether we allow that or what we consider negative. I think there is healthy fear, and I think there's unhealthy fear. I think there's unhealthy fear that says don't pursue your dreams because you're getting a paycheck every 2 weeks and it's covering your mortgage.
Right.
But then there's that healthy fear that says keep your job while you pursue simultaneously your dreams. And once your dream job comes true, then you'll be set. Don't quit your job that's holding you over. So again, I think it's just learning that to balance that out in our minds, to balance what is that? What fear is holding me back, and how can I overcome that fear? And how can I counter those negative thoughts? I'll give you an example. When I'm walking across the Grand Canyon, I got hit with 48-mile-an-hour winds, 1,600 feet up, no safety devices.
Right.
And Jim Cantori was on site. My father speaks to me. So Jim says to my dad, hey, that was a 48-mile-an-hour gust. My dad says, hey, Nick, that was 48-mile-an-hour gust. Immediately, my mind wants to go crazy and drop down to that wire and hold on for help.
Right.
But I can counter that thought of fear by saying, well, you trained with 90-mile-an-hour winds. This is barely half of what you trained for, and you sustained them with no issue during training. So, and that's just a real applicable for my career, but I'm able to take that negative and turn it to positive. What happened in this book was we were getting ready to break a world record for an 8-person pyramid.
Right.
And we trained very, very hard. Pyramid collapsed.
Right.
5 family members fell. My sister in a coma, broke every bone in her face, nearly died. Mm-hmm. And what happened was at that point, I had a seed planted in my mind. And I often talk to people and say, fear can be like, or negative thoughts can be like a weed in your garden. If you don't counter that, if you don't pull that weed out, eventually it'll germinate, spread seeds, and it will take over your garden. And a seed was planted when that accident happened, and it was seed of fear, something I didn't think was in my DNA. And it was something that I had, it was certainly the greatest struggle of my life and career to overcome this mental challenge, which, again, mind you, I've trained my whole life to overcome fear.
Of course.
Yet fear is what almost took my career away from me.
For sure. And I appreciate you sharing that, but I want to ask a follow-up because, look, Nick, you've had this amazing success, right? But you've also had some, turbulent times where you've hurt yourself. You just talked about the 8-person pyramid where your sister almost died and stuff like that. So, it's one thing to, overcome fear, but how do you overcome fear when there's been failure, when you've fallen off the rope, or in some people's cases, you've gone on a sales call and you got 1,300 no's and stuff like that? How do you overcome the failure? I mean, that fear once you've actually have experienced failure and seen people in front of you experience that failure as well?
Yeah, look, I would look at 1,300 no's as 1,301 is going to be a yes.
Fair enough.
And although it's challenging, it's overwhelming. It really is the way, and this isn't something that comes, I'm just not naturally just a positive person. I don't naturally see those things. This is something that I've learned by practicing over and over again.
Right.
By not allowing, it's funny how one accident of an 8-person pyramid overcame, the thoughts of that one accident overcame the over 4,000 times I've held that pyramid successfully. But it was the one negative time, and that's all my mind could focus on. And that's what almost ruined my occupation. It took it away from me, took away my passions, was that one time. So again, I think we all know that I guess maybe we don't all know, but success is generally at 1,301. It's generally at the point where you're ready to give up, and that's when you're going to succeed. And that's when you're going to have a windfall of success, momentum. You have to have those negatives. You have to have the no's, because that's what builds character. take that 1,300 no's as incredible practice, because now you have so much experience that 1,300, 1, 2, 3, 4, and maybe 7 and 8 and 9 are going to be yeses because you have such great experience from those 1,300. So we can look at that as negative and give up, or we can look at it as positive. But it all comes down to our mindset, and really that applies to everything in life. And what I've learned is I have to apply that and practice that continually and daily. It's not something that stays with me just because, oh, well, I've trained my mind and now I'm always positive. No, it's something that I have to work on every single day, because my mind still wants to go to the negative. And I have to grab that thought and go, nope, I'm going to turn that to positive. And it's amazing how well that works. And I used to be the one that would hear somebody saying what I'm saying right now. I'd be on the other side of the speaker and I'd be rolling my eyes. And then I started practicing it. And it's amazing how much my life has changed and altered through that process.
For sure. Thank you for sharing that. I think you said something very important. Startup Nation, I hope you caught that. That is something that you have to work on constantly. It's not just one of those things where you just like, oh, fear is gone. I don't fear uncertainty no more, but it's something that you constantly work on. And I also appreciate the transparency where you talked about how you're not naturally an optimistic person and that you have to work on that every day. So I appreciate all of that, Nic, for sure.
Absolutely, man. I'm so blessed with the opportunities in life that I've been through. And again, I had no desire of even writing another book. I wrote my first book, Balance, and it really told my life story and a lot of my struggles. I'm very, very open, transparent about the good, the bad, the ugly. It doesn't matter. I talk about it. I feel like there's nothing to hide. And the reason being is because we all have those. We all have those attitudes or characteristics that we hide in the closet. And the reality is, I believe that I have gone through what I've gone through. And if I go through it myself, it's selfish and there's no benefit to it. But if I can use the experience I've gone through to help somebody else overcome fear, to help somebody else pursue their dreams, to help somebody else overcome shame. I talk a lot about shame in my book as well. And if I can do that, then I believe that I've actually succeeded in life. You know, right. Success is different, everybody. To me, a legacy is leaving a lasting positive imprint on other people. And my hopes are, again, through this book and the challenges that I went through that were to the point where after that accident, I went to my wife. We started training I went on to perform for 6 weeks, took about 6 weeks off, got back on the wire to train after that accident with a new group because we were contracted to do that pyramid, and started experiencing fear to the point where I went to my wife and said, I'm done. I can't walk the wire anymore. And I'll never forget what she said. She's extremely supportive of me. And she said, look, I respect what you're saying, and I'll respect that. If that is your decision, I will 100% back you. But your family for over 200 years have lived by the words, the show must go on. You've lived by never give up, the words never give up. And you've inspired so many people to not give up or to get back on the horse. And she's like, you need to live out what you've always said. And you need to start recalling what you've learned and what you've taught throughout your life and start recalling that. And that kind of flipped a switch. And it didn't happen overnight. It was the greatest challenge that I ever had to overcome, was overcoming this fear where I was literally watching this pyramid. As I was holding it, I would reenact the accident in my head, play it over and over again, a form of PTSD, literally watching it happen.
Right.
And again, the greatest challenge of my life. But going through it, I realized when I look back, I went through it. And rather than going through it and saying, okay, great, I made it to the other side, my thought was, you know what, I made it through this. And there's so many people that have fallen off the wire that don't want to get back up. I believe that all of us are on the wire. We're all trying to get to the other side, whether we all have different wires of life, but we're all just trying to get across. And my hopes are that through my experiences that I'm able to hopefully help somebody else overcome what's holding them back and help them, whether it be a health issue, whether it be raising teenagers, whether it be pursuing their dreams, but help them get to the other side.
For sure. Thank you for sharing that. And you mentioned your wife and the part of the book about talking about shame, chapter 4, silencing shame. And you talk about your wife in the story that you just told, and you talk about something a little bit bigger than that. You talk about the importance of a community and stuff like that when you're going through something that you're pursuing your dreams and stuff like that. Kind of talk about that, Nic, a little bit about the importance of a community that surrounds you as you go forth and pursue your dreams and facing fear and things of that nature.
Yeah, I talk about so much about community in this book because it really is about, my successes in life are about my team, about my community, about the people that are around me. I think that it's so easy to be, I've told my kids growing up, you can judge a man by his friends. And if you hang out with a lot of negative people, you're going to become, it's just natural. You're going to become negative. If you hang out with, I've always tried to hang out with people that are more successful than me, that I can learn from. And I try to spend time with people that I can sort of bounce ideas off of, that I know have already been there, that I can talk to. And look, if it wasn't for my community, I wouldn't have written this book, because I wouldn't be back on the wire. I wouldn't have been able to get back on the wire. But that support team is so key to our successes in life. It's important that we have a supportive spouse. It's important that we have a supportive friend or several supportive friends that can help us. Because look, the reality is, it's a teetering act. Your friend might be down while you're up, and you might be up while they're down. And it's all about community of reaching down, because the reality is we all have to go through the valleys.
Right.
So when I'm going through the valley, I'm hoping my friend is on the mountaintop, because I can reach down and grab my hand. And those are the people that I try to surround myself with. And it is, again, the only reason. People watch these amazing TV specials where I'll do these walks on, we talked about walking over an active volcano in Nicaragua. Right. The reality is it took 400 people to make that TV special happen, right, including producers and cameramen. But it's about, you only see me. But the reality is there's no way humanly possible for me to accomplish that by myself. It's all about teams. So I encourage people to be wise and choose your friends wisely, and I've always tried to do that. I've learned that my friends change as I grow up, as I mature. Right. My friends, now that doesn't mean my old friends aren't still my friends, but the people the core team that I surround myself with, they certainly change as I mature and as I grow up. And some of my friends have been along that journey, and some of them are still great friends, but they're not necessarily on that core team anymore, because I've outgrown them with my team. But surround yourself with people that are smarter than you, and people that will encourage you, and people that will lift you up. And also, again, keep in mind, there are many of those friends that I have sort of respectfully outgrown, that I reach back for all the time and say, come on, get up here. Let's go, catch up. I'm up here now. Time for you to make it up here. And it's really an awesome balance of life, just being able to, it sort of all becomes full circle eventually, and to see where I progressed, then also a friend will leapfrog me and then reach back for me. And that's really the way it should be in life.
For sure. And I appreciate you sharing that, because you talk about some of those friends who, where their roles kind of change in your life. You know what I mean? Like what they were for you 5 years, now 5 years from now, they may be something different, or maybe they're not there anymore, and being okay and being comfortable with that as you grow and as you go through that maturation process. I appreciate all of that, Nic, for sure. Once again, Startup Nation, we are talking to Nic Wallenda, the author of Facing Fear, Step Out in Faith and Rise Above What's Holding You Back. That book is out today, Startup Nation. We have a link in the show notes for easy access if you're listening to the replay on the podcast. Going back to walking across the active volcano, Nic, and you talked about, having a team there. I saw the ABC special where it talked about your uncle kind of being there and leading that charge to help you get across that process. I want to ask kind of a two-part question, if I may. I guess the first part is, talk about like some of the conditions when you walked across that volcano, like how hot it was. Cause you were sweating, brother. You were sweating bullets, seriously. But talk about the wind gusts, talk about all those factors you have to overcome and stuff like that. But on this, my second question on top of that is, you said that like once you get, and this is such a great metaphor for facing fear. Once you get towards like you just really dive into it, you become more comfortable. So kind of talk about all of that, if you don't mind, good sir.
Sure. Yeah, look, I would, first of all, the volcano was a dream of mine that sort of came to mind. I was flying to do a corporate event where I was speaking in Mexico City. And as we flew in, there's a very famous volcano there. And my wife goes with me on most of my events. And I remember looking out the window and seeing this active volcano and looking over and saying, it would be pretty amazing to be the only person in the world to walk a wire directly over an active volcano. I know that sounds crazy, but it's literally the way my mind works. So she looks at me and sort of rolls her eyes. knowing that it's something that I'll pursue because it's just the way I am. The challenge was finding a volcano that really fit the needs of what I wanted to do. And it's quite contrary to what you would think. You would think, if being a wire walker looking for a volcano, you would want one that was not active, that wasn't windy, that was fairly low to the ground, and you walk over the caldera, the crater, and you've walked over a volcano. I was looking for a volcano that had 2,000 plus degree magma flowing at the bottom, that had heavy gases in the air, that was at least 1,000 feet up. It happened to be 1,800 feet up. Wow. And 1,800 feet across. So it was the highest, the longest, the hottest, and the windy, very, very windy walk as well. So we were facing every element. When I look to do these things, I think about how am I going to continue to challenge myself to be better? I think it's so easy to get to a point in your career where you become complacent.
Right.
All right, I'm the boss. I'm okay. I'm the assistant manager. I'm the general manager. I'm good enough. My goal in life is always to be the CEO and to own the company. That's just the way I've always operated. And that's even back when I worked at a restaurant. Didn't matter. I started at 15 working at a restaurant, still performing during the summers, worked my way up to general manager, 22 employees by the time I was 19. It was just it's just the way my mind works. I believe that everything we do, we should do with excellence, with the greatest of our ability. And I believe that attitude is honored. It's honored by our bosses. It's honored by our CEO. And it's something that is very, very important, certainly, to achieve success, at least in my mind. So I found a volcano in Nicaragua that had all of those elements. The challenge was to rig it was going to be fairly impossible because of the gases, because of the heat, because of the instability of wire, etc. So again, talk about team. I put them under so much pressure because my uncle, who's my lead engineer, will go, "Come on, Nick, why here? Why did you have to choose this one?" But again, I think that being a leader, you should continually challenge your team. I think that's extremely important, to continually challenge them to be better. I think a great leader makes great leaders, and that's always my goal. When I'm doing these walks, is how can I use what I do, and not just these walks, but again, this accident that happened on the wire. How can I use what I'm going through to help others? There's so much. It's so much more rewarding to give than receive. And in my opinion, we can do that in all walks of life. We can do that as a boss. We can do that as a leader. We can do that as an employee. I've taught my kids that growing up that your job is to make your job's boss as simple as possible, because one day he's going to want to retire. Right. And guess who he's going to choose? He's going to choose you. So live and lead with excellence. And you're sure to be successful in whatever occupation. Another thing I've told my children is no matter where you go, I don't care if you work at a fast food restaurant, or if you work at IBM, or if you're the president of the United States, do it to the best of your ability and work harder than anyone else around you, and you'll be successful, with the goal of always being better, and always, again, making the boss's job as easy as possible. And I'm extremely proud. I've got 3 children. I've got a son who's 22, who's in the Marines, serving our country, and one in the Army at 19, and then a 17-year-old daughter. But and they are climbing the ranks fairly quick, because I believe it's because of those important little seeds that I planted in their life throughout their childhood of always being the hardest worker. And I operate some businesses locally in Florida that I own. And when I'm there, I can promise you, if you went there without me knowing, and talked to any of the employees, they would tell you that I will outwork any one of them anytime that they are there or that I'm at that office. Because it's just my nature. Is I'm always going to lead by example, and I'm going to lead with excellence.
And just really quickly, like the second part of my question, just talk about why, as you move forward in pursuing your dream, and it just starts to not necessarily gets easier, but you're not as fearful. You're not as, as scared to face that uncertainty. Because like I said, you talked about that when you got towards the middle, of the volcano. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I think, look, we all have, all learned from every time I've learned anything in my life, it's been it's been in the valley. Gotcha. That's where I learn. It's not when I'm on the mountaintop. It's when I'm in the valley. Gotcha. And again, I think that there's so much importance to that valley. That's where the learning happens. That's where the iron is being sharpened, is down in those valleys. So through those experiences, again, we can take those and give up, or we can take those and move up. And that's what I've always chose to do is is always continue to, no matter what situation I'm in, continue to push forward and learn during them. And the more that I do that, the more valleys I'm in, the more comfortable I get in that valley. And the easier it is to look back and go, okay, I've been through this. It's funny, every TV special I've done, every one of them, days before the event, something massive will happen that will throw things for a loop. And perfect example is my latest walk. Well, Grand Canyon, I woke up the morning very, very sick, which is obviously a big deal when you're going to walk 1,800 feet on a cable the size of a tennis ball.
Of course.
Volcano, 2 days before the walk, cable started snapping. Now, this is my sixth TV special on national TV. And normally, early on, I would have lost it, freaked out, been fearful, scared, like these cables could snap, I could fail, I could lose my life, etc. Now, I respect what I do, and I realize I'm always risking my life, but I also, again, train, prepare properly. But rather than that, at this point, because of experience, I expect something like that. So when it comes, it doesn't rock my world. Again, here I get hit with the valley, but it's okay because I know that through the valley, there's going to be success. There's going to be that mountaintop coming up. So the more you go through those situations, the more comfortable you get in those situations and you handle those situations better. And the better you handle them, the quicker they go away. And I've learned that there's no benefit. There's no benefit whatsoever to stressing out over things. We should focus on them. We should work on them. We should use wisdom. We should surround ourselves with the right people. But to stress out over a situation, there is literally only negative implications of stressing out. There is nothing positive of stressing out. Speaking in public, when I first started speaking in public, man, I wouldn't sleep for days. I'd walk over the Grand Canyon, sleep fine the night before. Gotcha. Get on stage and talk to a group. I wouldn't sleep for days.
Wow.
What I learned is because of that stress, I'd get on the stage and I would bomb. In my mind, I mean, I'm a high achiever,
Gotcha.
So I could never deliver to the level I want to, but I would feel like I bombed. Well, the more I got comfortable, the better I did. The more people would understand, the more people would listen, the better my message would be delivered. Again, it was about that repetition, but there was no benefit to me stressing out. I practice this all the time, and it is about where we allow our mind to go. Very much in my new book, Facing Fear, I talk about it. But early on in my marriage, I would get in an argument with my wife, and I would just, anything I could do, I was not going to lose that argument. And it would be an all-out fight. It could last days, it could last weeks, it didn't matter. I've learned at this point in my life that there is no benefit, even if I'm right, which is rare, there's no benefit to winning that argument. So let it go. There is nothing good that's going to come out of that. So again, our minds are programmed to negative. I always just try to focus on positive. When I get in an argument with my wife, I used to think of that fight, and that would be it, that argument, rather than the 300 incredible dates that we went on, etc. Right. I would always focus on the one. Even with this accident, thousands of times doing this pyramid, I focus on the one negative. So it's something that I practice constantly, and it's where I allow my mind to go. People we don't understand. We're in control of our mind. Our mind is not in control of us. Once we can learn that, we can achieve anything.
All right, Startup Nation, so we're going to go ahead and take a quick break. We got to pay some bills. Once again, my name is Dominic Lawson, and you're listening to The Startup Life. This fresh coat of the Startup Life has been sprayed on nice and smooth by Wagner and the Flexo series of paint sprayers. Startup Nation, my wife decided she wanted to rehab her childhood home. The goal was to fix it up and invite a nice family to rent it out. We knew one of the biggest jobs we had to undertake was painting. However, from the walls, the cabinets, and even the siding outside, it was going to be a big task. As entrepreneurs with a company to run, we knew this was going to take up a lot of our time, which is why we decided to get a paint sprayer. And after much research, we decided to go with the sprayer from the Flexio series from Wagner. Startup Nation, these sprayers are top-notch because of its flexibility to paint or stain walls, furniture, cabinets, and more. It's 10 times faster than using a paintbrush, which was a big selling point for us. And you can paint or stain right from the can. It's also easy to clean in 5 minutes, and being great for indoor and outdoor projects, a paint sprayer from the Flexio series clearly needs to be part of the arsenal in your garage. So if you're ready to stain your deck, or like me, fill your daughter's request of a bubblegum pink room, up your game with a paint sprayer from the Flexio series by Wagner. Take it from me, your time will thank you. This episode is sponsored by Swanson Health. Startup Nation, Swanson Health has been producing quality vitamins and supplements, foods, healthy home, and self-care products for over 50 years. Since 1969, from the heart of America, Swanson Health carries over 20,000 wellness products at a great value. Pick up all of your favorite health products, plus discover new ones for your wellness routine, all while leaving money in your pocket. If you want to try any of Swanson Health's great products for yourself, use code STARTUP20 for 20% off at swanson.com. We have a link there in the show notes if you listen to the replay. This episode of The Startup Life is powered by Colony Spark. Startup Nation, with our economy in flux, there is a lot of mixed messaging out there. If there was ever a time to take control of the narrative and let your customers know that you're here to serve them, it's now. And that's why you have a friend in Colony Spark. Colony Spark is an omni-channel marketing agency that believes in the power of community to ignite your business. They have helped companies across many industries with lead generation, revenue growth, and more to put them on the path to success. My guy Bill Murphy and his team are very good at what they do. How do I know this? Because not many SEO companies have the stamp of approval of being partnered with Google. Yes, that Google. So I want you to go to www.colonyspark.com/startup to schedule a meeting today. In that meeting, you will review your current marketing activity, receive actionable advice on how to pivot and grow, and ask any marketing questions you may have on navigating over the next few months. Look, Startup Nation, I know things may seem uncertain right now, but if you are looking for a business partner that can help light the way, go with Colony Spark, where they firmly believe in business helping business. All right, Startup Nation, welcome back as we continue our conversation with today's guest here on The Startup Life. Sharing that. And you know what, when you were talking, it reminded me of something you were saying earlier about like when you said in your mind when you did a speaking engagement, like you bombed or something like that, or even when you're getting ready for a big event, a big televised event, you maybe hurt yourself and stuff like that. You were talking about how you learned that there's a level of respect for those adversarial moments. Kind of talk about that a little bit, because like I said, you talked about that a little bit in the top of the show a little bit.
Yeah, look, I think that through every situation, we learn more and more about we learn more about respect. We learn more about respecting those situations. Right. So many people would walk to the edge of a building and look down, and they would be fearful, right? Gripped by fear.
Of course.
I walk to the edge of the building, and I probably have close to the same emotion, but rather than that motion being fear, I call it respect. I respect the fact that that's a long way down and then I could get hurt. I respect the fact that there's danger there, but I don't have to be so fearful that I can't walk to the edge. I know that the edge of the building is solid. Now, I will tell you, when I walk up to the edge of the Grand Canyon, I'm on a rock that was made by God, and I don't know if that rock's going to slip or move. And I am extremely cautious. I'm not scared, but I respect that rock. I use my wisdom, right, and I respect that rock could fall out from under me. And I think that's the difference. It is, again, there's healthy fear and there's unhealthy fear. There's fears that are there on purpose. A poisonous snake, it's smart to be fearful. Now, again, fearful to the point of screaming and running away, there's no benefit in that. But respecting and keeping my distance, there's absolutely a benefit of that. And then there's unhealthy fear that keeps us from pursuing what we're called to be, or what our goals and dreams are in life. That unhealthy fear tells us, to give up on your dreams and continue doing what you're doing because it's working. And again, if people could just overcome that, and really overcome that negativity in their minds, and really turn that negative into positive. And when I want to walk across the Grand Canyon and I find out that it's going to take changing rules and regulations and the rigging's going to be extremely expensive, I don't let that be a negative. I let that actually fuel the flames, if you will. And that's what drives me to go, okay, it's a bigger challenge. I almost enjoy the challenge of getting permission as much as I do the walk itself. And I think it's really about our mindset. And again, early on, it wasn't that way. Early on, I remember trying to get permission to walk across Niagara Falls, changing 2 laws, 2 countries, 100 years old. I remember, a door being closed and sort of sitting there pouting like, this isn't going to happen. This is dumb. Why am I even trying to do this? So again, it was a learned trait. It was something that through time I realized, no, as long as I continue to pursue this, as long as it's something, that is a desire, it's one of my passions, I'm going to continue to pursue it against those challenges. You might apply for the same job at 50 different places, but again, don't give up. Continue to apply, even reapply at the same place, because it just takes the right person or that boss, that CEO at the right time pulling across that resume going, oh, you know what? I had that resume that I saw about 6 months ago, and that's exactly who we need for this position.
For sure. Thank you for sharing that. And Startup Nation, I want to share something from the book that's super important, which is why you should purchase Facing Fear and put it in your entrepreneurial toolkit. Nic has 3 lessons he learned from failure. Number 1, fight every day for what you want. Number 2, work for what you desire. And number 3, accept failure as inevitable. And it kind of goes back to what you was talking about, the Grand Canyon and that rock, kind of expecting or having that respect for things to kind of, maybe go awry a little bit. I want to ask you this really quickly, because I know one of the things that's kind of a theme of your book is your faith and expressing your faith. And stuff like that, and you tell the story about Coulter and also your son and how they were related. Kind of walk me through that story a little bit, if you don't mind, Nic.
Yeah. So when my son was I believe he was like 9 or 10 years old, I was getting ready to head to North Carolina to speak at a corporate event. And I was literally grabbing my bag to walk out of the house. My son was sitting at the kitchen table, and he collapsed in front of me. And when he collapsed, we didn't know what was wrong. Stopped breathing, called 911, ambulance came, and rushed him to the hospital. And I'll never forget that moment where I was actually going to speak in a church, and in North Carolina. And I remember going to the hospital, and the doctors there knew me well and said, you know what? I told them I'm supposed to be on a plane, but it doesn't matter. I'm here because I'm going to be here for my son, and I'm not going to go speak at this church tomorrow because of I'm concerned about my son. And they said, look, we're not sure what's going on, but we're going to give him a bunch of tests and just make sure that he's fine. So they sent him back to CT scan, X-ray, anything they could do, quick blood work. Within 35 minutes, they were back and they said, look, everything looks clear, man. We're not worried about him. Everything's fine. You go ahead. You need to get on the plane. He's going to be fine. We think it was just he was on some amoxicillin and he had drank something. We think they mixed together and it just caused him to pass out for a minute. But he's going to be fine. So I remember looking at my wife and saying, I really don't feel like I should leave. He's still in the hospital. He's still laying in this bed. I don't think I should leave. And she said, look, you need to put God first. You're doing God's work. You're going to speak in the church. You need to get on that plane. So I remember getting on that plane and I was on the tarmac getting ready to take off and the phone ringing. And my wife said, Nic, we are in the back of an ambulance and we're heading to Tampa, which is about 45 minutes away, St. Petersburg, to All Children's Hospital with Amadeus. I remember thinking, my gosh, I'm on a plane. There's no way I can get off. Now I'm heading North Carolina. It's about 8:00 at night. There's no return flights. It's a 14-hour drive.
Right.
What am I going to do? So I get on the plane. I get there, and he's at All Children's, and they're running a bunch of tests. And I call my wife, and I'm like, what should I do? She goes, no, you need to do God's work and do what you're supposed to be doing. So I ended up following through. And a long story short, I ended up speaking at 3 services at church while they were doing these tests, flew home, straight to the hospital. And I'll never forget the moment that the nurse said, the doctors would like to meet with you in a private room. Of course, my heart dropped. We went to this private room and they said, look, we've done some x-rays and we are very concerned that your son may have a form of cancer. And I'll never in a million years never want to relive the emotions sitting in that room and going back to sit next to him and spending another week in that hospital as they ran more and more tests. And a long story short, it ended up that it was a non-cancerous. So he did not end up having cancer, thank God. But that moment in that room led me to, it sort of changed my heart in a bunch of ways. And we now have a nonprofit, and I'll talk about that in a minute.
Sure.
But as I was walking across Niagara Falls, there was a little boy named Coulter. Coulter was about 5 years old, and his father, Michael, struggled with the fact that whether he would let his son watch this walk. And he was watching from the hospital room because Coulter did have a very strong form of brain cancer, aggressive form of brain cancer. And he said, should I let him watch this guy risk his life? He's only 5. And he said, I decided to let him watch. And he said, as we watched, we were so inspired by what you said and what you did. Mm-hmm. And we were so inspired at the fact that, you were overcoming this, and Coulter became a huge fan. And if you're ever in the Corpus Christi area, let us know. And I remember that was a letter that I received, and I remember receiving that letter and saying to my wife, we've been on the other side of this now. By the grace of God, our son did not have cancer in the end, but we know what these parents are going through. And I said, let's get on a plane. So we got on a plane, and a long story short, we became extremely close with Coulter's parents and Coulter. Coulter lived another 6 years and just passed away last year, actually. His parents and his sisters were both at my volcano walk in Nicaragua. But through that, we've launched a foundation, the Nic Wallenda Family Foundation. And this foundation is basically set up for a program for children that are battling leukemia or forms of cancer and the parents. Because we went through this situation, I think the kids are always so strong. They're smiling, even though they've lost all their hair from radiation, et cetera. They're still smiling. It's the parents that are really struggling. So this nonprofit is set up to sort of help comfort these parents and we've set up a couple programs. One is a tour that we're working on where we're going to create a cartoon that will play on closed circuit TV in the Children's Hospital. Let's say we're going to the St. Pete Children's Hospital, play for about 2 weeks. And it's a story of a character who's trying to overcome a battle, a challenge. Not a health challenge, but he's trying to overcome something and win this challenge. And he continues to lose and lose and lose. And then in the end, the final episode is live in person. This character is under this castle-like circus tent where he goes in and sees these children can actually come in and see the character that they've grown to love over the past couple of weeks via the cartoon actually overcome this challenge. In a goal to bring these children to a place where I believe there's something powerful about them, leaving the hospital itself, even though it's in the parking lot, maybe 10 feet from the edge of the hospital. But it gets them out, and there's something powerful mentally about them getting out of that hospital, but also just that encouraging storyline of them, this character overcoming this battle, hopefully encouraging them that they can overcome the battle. My grandmother was diagnosed with stage 4 cancer when she was 76 years old and lived another 4 years. The doctor said she had 2 more months. And the reality is the reason why she lived that long was because in her mind, you could get rid of cancer with a Tylenol, with an Advil. To her, it was nothing because she'd been through so much in life and she'd battled so much. And I talk about it in my book, but she'd battled so much that cancer really didn't faze her. And because of that, she lived a lot longer. So there's something powerful, it's scientifically proven, about the mind and being able to overcome something. So the story is created in that light. It's in the process of being created. We're still raising the funds to do that. But there's also a program for these parents just to set up basically a partner, somebody that will partner with these parents and be there to encourage them and pray with them and lift them up and talk with them and just be there with them through these difficult times when their children are diagnosed. For sure.
And Startup Nation, we have a link for that foundation in the show notes for easy access if you listen to the replay on the podcast to check that out. Nic, you were talking about children, how strong they are. Why do you think that is? Why is it that the children are so stronger than the parents and the family and stuff like that, in your opinion?
I think that as we get older and grow up, I think we have so much more experience with the negative that we just expect it almost. I think children are so innocent that, again, I think they have that mindset, just like my grandmother sort of, okay, well, that's all right. I'll overcome this. It takes a fall on the playground to learn what it feels like to hit the ground, to be nervous about falling off, that playground equipment. So if you've never tripped, then you're not scared of tripping. it is sort of, I think as children, they have, again, they're so innocent. They haven't been through these tough experiences and situations that we've been through, and so positive. There are very few children that are negative. Again, I've spent a lot of time in children's hospital, just visiting with families, and man, the children are always so positive. Again, always the ones that are uplifting the parents. The parents will sit there crying, and the children are like, "Why are you crying? Everything's fine. I feel good."
Right.
Even though the children are the ones that are going through the battle. So, again, I really think it just comes from innocence, just from lack of experience and innocence. And there's something beautiful about that innocent mind. There's something just beautiful. I mean, I deal with a lot of children with Down syndrome as well. And there's just such a beautiful, clean spirit about them and such a beautiful innocence. And I wish we could all be that. I wish we could all go back to that, just pure innocence.
For sure. Thank you for sharing that. Nic, if you don't mind, talk about your faith and how important it is to you. I'm looking at your Instagram account right now where right before you go across the volcano that you and your team are praying. Talk about your faith a little bit and your report and why it's important.
Yeah, I mean, my faith is the biggest reason why I'm able to do what I do. I, to be honest with you, don't understand how people are able to make it through life if they don't have faith in something.
Gotcha.
I believe that I know that I have a God that goes before me in life, and that I have a best friend that I can always talk to and I can always lean on. We can't always rely on our friends here on earth, but when you know that you've got a God you can talk to at any time, and I truly know that Jesus Christ is with me everywhere I go. And I would tell you the most important decision I made in my life was accepting him into my heart. It was something, I was raised a family of faith, and really that's how I'm able to stay calm and cool. The Bible talks about God providing a peace that passes all understanding. And that's really how I'm able to stay calm. And that's really how I'm able to maintain composure as leading up to these events. I will be on the phone with somebody 10 minutes before I get on the wire, and they get on the wire and walk. And again, I could allow stress to overtake me. I could allow worry and fear, but again, I can also cast all my cares upon God. Now, I will tell you that I don't in any way expect God to hold me on the wire. I know that he could, but the reality is God gives me wisdom, and it's up to me. It's my decision to get on that wire, and it's up to me to train and to prepare properly before getting on that wire.
For sure.
But just like getting in a car, what I do is a calculated risk. And what I mean by that is I can calculate the winds, I can calculate the tension of the wire, and then I can train for harder conditions. So when I get on when I walked over that volcano, I'd walked that cable nonstop 6 times, not there, mind you, in my backyard, not in that setting, but I've walked it 6 times. I walked it backwards, blindfolded, everything you could imagine to kind of recreate. We bring in wind machines that create winds of 90 plus miles per hour. I walk in torrential downpours. I walk with a 30% oxygen deprivation mask on. I train and prepare for everything that I do immensely. It's not as though I just get out there and say, well, let's see what it's like over this area. There's a lot of study and research that goes into what I do. And that's why it's a calculated risk. But the reality is every time we get in our car, we're taking calculated risk. When I'm driving 5 miles per hour on the interstate and there's a guy next to me driving, I don't know what his experience is. I don't know if he's been drinking. I don't know if he is on drugs. I don't know if he's depressed. It is a calculated risk. We are all taking risks every day in life. We just don't realize it because it becomes so normal. And the reality is that's the same with me walking on that wire. But my faith is why I am who I am and how I am able to remain confident and positive in stressful situations. Now, am I always successful at that? Absolutely not. It is something that I continually practice over and over and over again. It is not something that just comes natural. Again, I have to continually practice getting rid of those negative thoughts, getting rid of that fear, and countering it with positive thoughts. Right. And again, my faith. I quote a lot of Bible verses, a lot of scripture that I've memorized, and that's really the source of who I am.
I hear that. Thank you for sharing that and being transparent about that, Nic. And once again, Startup Nation, we're actually wrapping up with Nic Wallenda, the author of Facing Fear, Step Out in Faith and Rise Above What's Holding You Back. So, you talked about the relationships with your team. You talked about having that community, but there's one constant, and that's your wife. Talk about the importance she has been in your life and in your career, man.
Yeah, man, she is my rock for sure. That is one of the team members that is the key team member right there, is having a wife that will reach down and pick you up when you're down, and somebody that you can reach down and pick up when they're down. And I can tell you, we've been married for 20 years, and it hasn't always been that way. In fact, I talk about in my first book, Balance, where we were separated, where we didn't know if it was going to work out. But I will tell you, through thick and thin, we have worked through it, and that was many years ago. In fact, I think it was about 12 years ago now. But she is my rock, man. I can lean on her for anything. I remember when that accident happened, going to her and saying, "Hey, I don't think I can do this anymore." And she was the one who said, "Look, I support you, but for 200 plus years, your family has lived by those words, the show must go on. You've lived by the words, never give up. You've lived to encourage and inspire people. You need to get your head out of the gutter and figure this out, because that's who Nic Wallenda is." And it took her doing that to open my eyes up. And without her, I don't know that I would have written this book, and I don't know that I would be where I am. And I truly don't think I am, but it is amazing to have, your best friend being your spouse. And again, it's not all sunshine and roses every day,
right?
But we work through it. And that's really the goal, what everybody needs to work towards in their marriage, is to realize that it's not always perfect, but it is a job, and it's something we have to work for. And if we're willing to work for it, then we can be happy with our spouse. And it takes two. Both of you have to be willing to. But I know so many people that just give up early on in their marriages because they go, "Oh, it's just not working out, and we're not compatible." Look, I don't believe that there's anything such as a perfect match. There isn't. There's no such thing. There's nobody out there that can tell me, "I've been married for 40 years and never been in an argument." It happens. It's all about a mindset, realizing that, hey, you know what? No matter what, we made vows that we said through it all, we are going to stick together through the good and the bad, sickness and health, and as long as you maintain that, you will be happy. And it's a job. You have to work towards being happy. But again, I think that society is just so eager now to just say, "Oh, we'll just get divorced and find someone else."
That's true.
Man, that's not the way it's supposed to be. And if you can't find happiness with the first one, it's going to be just as hard with the second one. You just have more experience with the second one, so it may work out.
For sure. Thank you for sharing that. So, Nic, you're the face of the Wallendas. You've had this very long and honorable legacy that you've kind of carried the torch on. What do you hope for the next generation, the next part of the legacy, the next story of the Wallenda legacy? What do you hope for that next generation of Wallendas?
It's interesting. I've told my children, again, I talked about it early on, but that, I will be proud of them no matter where they work. I don't care if it's fast food. I don't care, as long as they are working as hard as they possibly can. I don't care if they're cleaning toilets or working in a fast food restaurant or running a company or stay-at-home mom. Be the best stay-at-home mom you can be then, if that's what you want to be. But make sure you're working hard at it. So I would tell you that, again, I have a 22-year-old Marine. I've got a 19-year-old in the Army. My daughter is going to go to school to be a nurse. I have a nephew that'll carry it on. I have a couple nieces that will probably carry this on. Mm-hmm. But the reality is our family history has always been about inspiration and inspiring people that through every challenge, nothing is impossible if you're willing to work hard at it and not give up. And I think that legacy will just continue on for generations to come.
For sure. Thank you for sharing that. And before I ask the last question, I just want to say thank you so much, Nic, for coming on the show. You gave amazing value, and you're sharing your phenomenal book, which is out today, Startup Nation. Once again, it's called Facing Fear. Step out in faith and rise above what's holding you back. And so, Nic, I'm actually going to turn the microphone over to you, man, because look, there's, with everything going on, there's a lot of people feeling discouraged, feeling a little fearful, if you will. Give us some words of encouragement to take us out for today, if you don't mind, good sir.
Absolutely. Yeah. I just want to encourage people that I think we're all on a wire. People watch me on TV, get on a wire and walk across the volcano or the Grand Canyon or wherever I might be around the world, but we're all on a wire. And when I am on that wire, over Niagara Falls. I'm not focusing on the wind. I'm not focusing on the heavy mist. I'm not focusing on the roar of the falls. I'm focusing on the solid rock that cable is tied to on the other side. And I want to encourage people that we will get through this pandemic. You will be able to overcome that fear that's holding you back as long as you work at it. It may not happen today. It may not happen tomorrow, but as long as you continue to work on it, it's just like having a positive attitude. It's way easier to be negative than positive. And I have to work at it daily. And I encourage you, even if it's small steps, that when I feel down, when I feel negative, I make myself smile. There's something about an endorphin that's released that can change your attitude and change your heart and change your spirit just by forcing yourself to smile. So at a minimum, if you don't feel like being positive, next time you're feeling down, just force a smile on your face and continue to do that. And little by little, build upon that and build more and more positivity. And you watch yourself climb out of the hole that you're in and achieve the greatest goals and dreams that you have in your life.
Awesome stuff. And that's going to wrap up this session of The Startup Life. Nic, thank you so much, my man. Really appreciate you coming on the show.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
No worries. And as always, Startup Nation, if you have an idea, be about that life, The Startup Life. If you want to let us know what you think about our show, have an idea for a show topic, or would like to advertise on our show, send us a message on the Startup Life Podcast Facebook page. And while you are there, like and follow our page as well. It's a great way for us to engage with you, Startup Nation, and really grow our community. The link is there in the show notes. Subscribe to the show as it can be heard on Apple Podcasts, Google Play, Stitcher Radio, Spotify, or even on your Facebook timeline or any other platform you like to get your podcast. If you are listening on Apple Podcasts and you find our content valuable, please give us a 5-star rating as it will help us climb the charts and help more people find our show. You can also listen to the show on the Startup Life Podcast new website. There you will find the all-new startup blog where I write on many topics that are interesting and helpful to you on your path to entrepreneurship. And hey, if you have an idea, be about that life, the startup life.